Thank you for making Locked On Yankees your first listen every day. We're free and available on all platforms. On today's episode, Rob Manfred spoke to the media yesterday. The players and the owners are meeting on Saturday, and you will have my reaction and Abby's reactions to those comments next on Locked On Yankees.
You are Locked On Yankees, your daily New York Yankees podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Yankee fans. Welcome to Locked On Yankees. I'm Stacey Gotsoulias, joined by Abby Mastracco, and it is Friday. Does it feel like the weeks are flying by to you? Because it feels like it to me.
I don't know. This week did not fly by. No. Two NHL coaches were fired. There was a lot going, plus all the lockout stuff. Like, there was just a lot going on. The Olympics.
Yeah.
I've been watching the Olympics. I know you've been watching the Olympics.
Yeah. I mean, how could you not? It's I grew up watching the Olympics. That was a thing that we did, especially, when I was a kid, it was still summer, winter, both the same year. So it was always like every 4
Winter
years.
Olympics did it every 2 years for a long time.
Yeah. It was like really exciting. And plus, we had all the countries that we rooted against, like East Germany and USSR, and, that's how we grew up.
Now it's the Russian Federation, and they're still doping. They're still doping. There was the gold medal ceremony that was ruined the other night. But you know what? Nobody is taking the crowns away from Nathan Chen or Chloe Kim or Shaun White, who looks like my brother. And they both live in San Diego, and my brother has gotten mistaken for Shaun White at the grocery store.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Yeah. Chloe Kim. I mean, all those sports, though, the snowboarding, the skiers that just fly off
Yeah.
I don't know how they do it. I really don't. And, now that I'm
Eileen
older
Gu.
and
Man, she was incredible the other night.
I mean, I'm like at the age where I should be a mother, and I have that instinct in me. And when I watch these things, I'm like, what are these kids doing? What are they? How do they do this? It's unbelievable.
My friend and I, my old roommate in LA, we lived together for 6 years in 3 different apartments in LA. We have such a fascination with the Olympics that one year we threw a big party for the Summer Olympics. And our other roommates were not really into it. And my roommate, Breck, the one who's very into it with me, gets up and she tells the other two, she was like, if you guys don't appreciate this, you can just go into your rooms. You're going to ruin this for me. Don't ruin it for me. So she texted me the other night and she was like, would you be against training for the 2-man luge with me?
Oh, that's the other thing. The skeleton, that's the one where they go by themselves. No. Yeah. No.
I was like, it seems like you're just asking for a death wish to hurdle yourself down a frozen racetrack or something, whatever it is, laying on. It was definitely invented by a drunk guy, right? There was a drunk guy who was let me hurdle myself at several miles an hour down this ice tunnel and see how fast I can go.
Yeah, he probably used a moving dolly. It was like, hey, let's try this down a hill.
Or
what?
a skateboard.
Yeah, one of the old skinny skateboards that I grew up learning how to skateboard on. Yeah, unbelievable. Now, before we get into everything, 2 things. If you're on YouTube, you can see that I'm wearing a Pitching Ninja shirt that is pink. It's in honor of Emily Walden, who's a baseball writer who just started a chemo this week. She was diagnosed with breast cancer, and this shirt is to help support her. So I think they closed down the sales on it, but people people keep asking for it, so they may reissue it. So I got
a message when I was trying to buy one, saying that it's closed for now, but they will, I believe, restock.
Yeah.
Breast cancer is very close to my heart. My dad had breast cancer. A lot of men don't realize they can get breast cancer, and a lot of women don't realize they can get it young.
Yeah.
So, everybody be diligent and donate to these funds that help bring awareness and education, because early prevention and detection is key in fighting things like that when you're just not aware that these things can affect you at a certain age or as a certain gender. I mean, breast cancer is the rarest form of cancer in men, and it's usually fatal because they don't know that they can get it, and they end up waiting too long And same with women under about 40, because 40 is when you start getting mammograms. It's typically fatal in women under, because they don't detect it early enough.
Right.
So
there's a lot of stage 4 diagnosis when they're that young, because like you said, and I know someone else, a guy that I used to hang out with in my 20s who's been fighting breast cancer for 3 years now down in North Carolina. And he's doing better, but yeah, it's scary stuff. So support Emily if you can when these are reissued. It's very soft and very nice, and goes towards a good cause. Now
Ninja's doing good things to help Emily in her battle and help bring awareness to it as well.
Yeah. Now, before we get into everything, Apple, Google, Odyssey, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, you're seeing our lovely faces. And if you have a smart device, you can tell it to play Locked On Yankees. So, Rob Manfred spoke, and we're going to
did he?
Yeah, he spoke yesterday. Did I miss it? Yeah, I missed it when it actually happened.
No, I missed it. I was knee deep in Edmonton Oilers mess.
Yeah. And he had some interesting things to say. And as I said in the open, the players and the owners are supposed to meet tomorrow. Hopefully it'll last more than an hour and a half this time. And, the players really want to get something done. Not that, I don't think the owners don't want to, but I feel like...
The owners want their money. The owners don't want to concede.
Right.
That's the problem.
Yeah, that's
the
exactly
owners want
it.
The money. And Rob Manfred's job is to negotiate on behalf of the owner. It is. As the commissioner of Major League Baseball, his job is to negotiate on behalf of the owners. However, in his role as the commissioner, he is still the governing body's, I don't want to say ambassador, like top ambassador of the game, but yeah, he kind of is.
Right.
And it's his job to... it's not his job to bridge the gap, but he's the one who needs to be pushing for more negotiation. Mm-hmm. Ultimately it's on him. It's on him to present. I mean, the owners haven't negotiated. That's been the players' complaint the last couple of weeks, is that the owners are not negotiating. I mean, the players have submitted a counter proposal, and the owners are not doing that. So, they wanted a mediator. That's not going to happen. The Players Association has rejected that. Manfred said all the things that the owners wanted him to say and probably needed him to say. But at the same time, nothing's getting done.
Right.
And it's ultimately at the end of the day, this falls on Rob Manfred. If nothing gets done, he's the one torpedoing the game right now.
Yeah. Yep. Now, this is the first clip. This talks about stuff that I believe was agreed upon, if I recall we have like 7 clips here, so let's...
With respect to labor, let me start with the most important point. The clubs, our owners, fully understand how important it is to our fans that we get the game on the field as soon as possible. We want to reach a fair agreement with the Players Association, and we want to do that quickly. We have listened carefully throughout this negotiation, and we have moved towards the players on key areas in an effort to address their concerns. We've proposed an agreement that is better in every respect than the expired contract. For the first time in history, and despite substantial opposition by some clubs, we've agreed to institute a draft lottery to address the players' concern about clubs not competing. The players have said throughout the process that a key priority is getting young players paid more. We agree, and we actually share that goal. That's why we've proposed to increase pay to young players through significantly increased minimum salaries, and by accepting the concept brought forward by the players of a bonus pool for the game's best young stars. Under our proposal on the table, every single pre-arbitration player would be better off than under the previous agreement. With respect...
Sorry. Technical difficulties there. What do you think of that statement there?
I think that there are some, okay, he's at least they're agreeing that, players need to be paid more. The draft lottery, I don't know that I would be opposed to that. I don't know. I deal with that in other sports. I don't know that it necessarily prevents teams from tanking. Hello, Arizona Coyotes. I'm looking at you, but it does have a little bit more. It does lead to a little bit more competitive integrity. I don't know that there was doesn't always, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I don't know that he's coming off as sincere.
Right. I feel that way too.
Yeah, I don't want to be that person who every time he says something, I am immediately thinking like, this is over before it starts. But I just don't know that there's a lot of sincerity right now. And okay, there's some proposals. Now, how can you use that as like a springboard to go from there to like really get an agreement hammered out?
Yeah. And also, how can you say that they really want to get an agreement hammered out when there were how many days before things, you know what I mean?
Yes.
There was like 70 days. There was like a gap there that nothing was happening. So it just seems disingenuous, I guess.
Yeah. But you know what? I think we're always going to sort of take that position when he talks right now, because there's just so much anger towards the whole situation, but really there's more anger towards the commissioner and the owners. And I'm trying to take any sort of bias out of it. I'm a reporter. I'm good at that. But what I'm seeing from a lot of players is a lot of frustration and anger. And I think that's very valid as well. And we have to consider that. So it is a little bit tough in this situation for me to take my bias out of it. And I'm really good at this as a journalist usually, but this is really testing my ability to stay neutral.
Yeah, I understand that. Now, before we look at the next clip, we have to talk about the fact that it's February, and this is the time when people stop. Well, actually, most people, when they make New Year's resolutions, let's be honest, they give them up within the first 2 weeks of January. But this year, I'm sticking to my resolution to eat right thanks to Built Bar. It almost feels like it's not really a resolution because I actually enjoy eating them. And have you tried their puffs, Abby? They're marshmallows, basically, covered in chocolate, and they're actually really, really good. They're the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy, they're not just a protein bar, they're a treat, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate. Some of the flavors that they have, cinnamon churro, that's the best one. I've tried that one. Coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie, and you know what? These are going to be some of your new favorites. All Built Bars are 100% covered in real chocolate. So good. Low calorie, high protein. Replace your candy bars with these. They're better. Typical candy bar can be anywhere from 200 to 300 calories. Flavors, mint brownie, coconut almond, and now this month, white chocolate cookies and cream. They're all delicious. Yeah. And new flavors are coming out all the time. And if they think a flavor might be good, they'll make it. It'll be delicious and it'll be good for you. So go to Built.com, use our promo code, and get 15% off. That's any order. Could be your first, could be your 50th. Again, use the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. It's Super Week, brought to you by Get Upside, and there's no better place to get coverage of the big game than the Locked On NFL podcast, Locked On Bengals, and Locked On Rams. All three are in LA covering the big game. Now, just briefly, it's supposed to be like 85 on Sunday. They said that it has a chance to be the hottest Super Bowl ever, which should be interesting to watch.
I mean, that's the benefit of living in LA. I'm hearing the wind against my window right now. And I'm looking outside going, wow, I should go run at the track because it looks really nice out. And today's my running day, which I hate. It's the worst.
It actually is. It's 56 up here in Rockland, so it must be near 60 down there in Brooklyn, I would think.
It's about 55 in Williamsburg. But I can hear the wind against my window. which doesn't, and I hate running to begin with. Like I do it. I have one running day a week in my routine, and I don't know that I want to be like running against 30-mile-an-hour winds.
I've been told by doctors to never run again, so I can't run.
How do I get that doctor to tell me that?
Yeah, I had an orthopedic surgeon tell me, I don't want you running ever again. Even if you're running for your life, try to, maybe walk just really fast.
I'm getting kidnapped. Kidnapper, just take me. You have to.
Yeah.
So that's the benefit of living in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
I am very much looking at my window. I'm looking at my window right now going, it looks like Los Angeles weather, but it's not. And I have a lot
30 degrees colder.
Yeah. I've got a ton of friends at the Super Bowl right now who I'm seeing their Instagram posts and they're texting me photos and I'm like, oh,
yeah,
really have fun, guys. Have fun.
So the other big thing happening this weekend, as we said, the players and the owners will be meeting. Hopefully something will come out of it. And, we showed the first clip of Rob Manfred. Now here is clip number 2. Hopefully we won't have a technical problem here. Hold on. Let's try this again.
We've agreed to a universal designated hitter and the elimination of draft choice compensation. These changes will improve the free agent market by creating additional jobs that are often filled by veteran players and by eliminating the drag from compensation. We've made a meaningful proposal directly responsive to the players' longstanding concern about service time of young players. We'd like to expand the playoffs, which is good for players and for clubs. It's also good for our fans, the vast majority of whom enjoy playoff baseball. We think the new format will encourage more clubs to compete while giving more players the opportunity to participate in the postseason. In total, the proposals we've made would move the agreement decidedly in the players' direction.
Okay, universal DH, I agree. I said this, I think it was a couple of years ago. Maybe it was Nelson Cruz who was available. There were a couple of guys who were, at that age where you'd prefer them to be a DH. And, they didn't really have many options. They only had American League teams to look at, and there were other teams that had needs for them. And now this opens up a whole new world for some players.
It's
really,
just time. It's just time. Look, it's gonna. The only player that it's really the only player in baseball that hitting for himself is a competitive advantage for is Jacob deGrom, because the Mets can never give him any sort of run support. So deGrom has to take matters into his own hands, literally, and do it himself. And it has been to the detriment of him as well, because
he's hurt himself
from swinging the bat.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so Mets, but it's just time. It's time. The game has to keep evolving, and it's a way it is going to speed up the pace of play a little bit, maybe not enough to make a huge difference, but it's something that a lot of the players want. And the game has to keep evolving somehow, and sure, you can make the argument that if you can pitch and hit, then do it. Then the Madison Bumgarners and the Jacob deGroms could be used still as pinch hitters. There's nothing saying that they can't.
Right.
But for the most part, it's not going to affect Shohei Ohtani in the American League. Players have been wanting this for a while. There's just, I understand that the diehard traditionalists are going to say it takes some of the strategy out of the game. But we all know the strategy. It's just a double switch.
Right. It's not that big.
It's not
that big a deal.
No, to me, what's more interesting is the strategy behind how the Angels are using Shohei Ohtani in his starts, because he's pitching and hitting. Mm-hmm. So, to me, what's more interesting is when they take him out of when and where they take him out of the lineup, how are they replacing their best bat? Right. It's just, and that's an American League team. So, there is still strategy involved in American League Baseball.
You're right. I think, and my brother, I said this on the show yesterday, my brother thinks that if a pitcher wants to be the DH when he's not pitching, he feels like maybe on a day where he's not, or if they do the same thing that they did in the All-Star game where Shohei Ohtani batted, and then when they took him out, it wasn't as if they had to replace him with a pitcher. They were able to replace him with a person that doesn't pitch. And I think
position player.
Yeah, like that's exactly it. My brain's not working. I think that's a good idea, and I think they should implement that because, don't take the opportunity for these guys to hit if they want to. Like, say DeGrom wants to hit when he's pitching. Just let him do it, and don't penalize the team when they have to take him out and say, oh, no, the reliever that came in has to hit for him. Have someone else hit for him.
I don't know that there's that many pitchers who want to hit for themselves.
Right. No, I think DeGrom might be the only one, aside from Ohtani.
Well, Noah Syndergaard used to really like doing it, and, like, every once in a while you get a pitcher who, like, they get a hold of one as a pinch hitter and, when you talk to them afterwards, they're always like really happy about it. And they're like, yeah, that was fun. It's fun because they did really well in like one at bat.
Right. It's like a novelty.
A 14-inning game.
Yeah.
It's fun because they ended a 14-inning game and they get to go home and go to sleep and get to go back to their hotel and go to sleep now.
Yeah.
I don't think that many pitchers really want to do it anymore. There's so much injury risk right now. Like, we are seeing Tommy Johns at a higher rate than we've ever seen before. The last few years have been so strange in terms of like ramping up to pitch and then having to stop the pandemic in 2020, then trying to get in a bunch of innings for a lot of the minor league guys last year who didn't have the opportunity to play in 2020 because of the pandemic. Like, soft tissue injuries are up across the board.
Oh yeah.
So we're eliminating a little bit of an injury risk for pitchers, which is helpful. There's still strategy in the game, guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There is.
Now, I don't mind the expanded playoffs, but I feel as if
I don't think we need to expand them too much, though. Otherwise,
Right.
You're just diluting the talent pool.
Right. And I also feel like if they're going to expand the wild card round to, say, 3,
Yes.
win 2 out of 3, maybe cut back on the regular season games if they're going to expand the playoffs. But I don't know.
How much more are you going to expect? Like, I don't think we need more than the way that it's set up right now with the wild card games. The wild card games have been pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Have been very good. I mean, going back to like the one that really stands out to me was the Royals in 2014, and the Giants, like they managed to win the World Series after winning a wild card. Those wild card, that was both 2014. Yeah, they played each other.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see, I think a one game play-in is maybe not enough of an opportunity. You want a competitive series. Okay, so make it 3 games.
Yeah, definitely not 5.
No,
definitely only
and
3.
You are rewarding these teams for making it to a certain point in the season. So, yeah, expand it to 3, but I don't think we need to open it up that much more because then you're going to start getting some teams that like were barely above 500.
Right.
and also, like, what's that going to do with the trade deadline?
Oh yeah.
What's that going to do with the trade deadline? If you open the playoffs up and you add, let's say, 2 more teams to each in the AL and the NL, and you've got these teams that are barely above 500, they've got some guys on expired contracts, and they could really benefit from getting some assets if they traded them at the deadline to a team that like has a better chance of contending. Trading away players like that when you're like sort of at the brink is not always a bad thing. It's like it's a little bit of a pause and a reset, and you sort of build up for next year and the year after that. Like, one good prospect can jumpstart an entire rebuild, and maybe it's not even a full rebuild. Maybe it's just a reset. So, like, do we really need that many more teams in the playoffs? And I know why the owners and Rob Manfred are trying to expand the playoffs that much more, because it's money.
Right.
It's more money. But that's also more operating costs for these teams.
That's true too. When he was talking about giving more teams opportunity, my first thought was the Angels, because it drives me crazy. Even as a Yankee fan, it drives me crazy that
Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani are not in the playoffs.
You don't get to see them ever unless it's an all-star game. They're never on national TV because no offense, but who wants to see the Angels? They're never in contention anymore. So it's always
also
Yankees, Red Sox, Rays, Cubs, Cardinals because of that whole rivalry, but there's nothing special. Yeah, and the Dodgers and Giants, and I don't know. That just drives me crazy that those two are locked up for
but at the same time, are they even capable? Are they capable of making a deep run? Are you putting teams in a position are you setting teams up to fail?
Right.
If you're expanding the playoffs to mediocre teams, are you setting them up for success, or are you just grabbing a few extra dollars?
That is a good question. I'm going to think about that. Because, I don't know, like, and that whole, there was another idea that they had for expanding the playoffs that was even more, like, you know, one of the early ideas where it was like, how many teams did they say it was going to be? And I thought to myself, no, don't turn this into like an NCAA tournament of getting into the playoffs.
Not every team is supposed to be in the playoffs.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm not one of the traditionalists who says, oh, you know, the top AL and NL, the top 2 AL and NL teams, those are the only ones that should be. I'm not saying that.
Right.
I have, like, you just listen to me sit here and say the wild card format has been very good. We've seen some really good baseball from that wild card format, but open that up a little bit more.
Right.
Expand that to 3 games.
Yeah.
We don't need much more than that. There's a lot of talent to go around. I get it. But, like, you're just sort of diluting the playoff pool at that point. And we didn't really have a good World Series. That was, like, the most lackluster World Series that I can barely remember that World Series this year.
Oh, yeah.
Do we want more baseball like that?
I was like, wait, who won again?
Do we want more? And, like, the game that stands out to me from this playoff series was the Dodgers-Giants game. That was such an exciting baseball game.
Yeah, that was a bummer.
I know, right? Such an anti-club. Poor Wilmer Flores, like, just the nicest guy.
Yeah, that was just, that was one of those things where you wish it had gone on more.
Oh,
like, there was more of it.
Wilmer.
Yeah.
But, like, so do we need that many more playoff teams? I just don't think we really do. And, like, it's just, we're just going to keep having more watered down series. If that's the case, I don't know. That's my thoughts. The product is just going to be watered down.
Now, speaking of playoffs, the Super Bowl is this weekend, and the Bengals are in the Super Bowl for the first time since I was in high school. And BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as the NFL marches through the playoffs right to the big game on Sunday. BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just football. BetOnline has up-to-the-minute info on pro and college hoops, NHL, boxing, UFC, along with live real-time updates of current games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the new amazing offers available for the 2022 season. BetOnline, where the game starts. I keep going back and forth, and I'm not sure who to pick because, you know, I see like an even distribution of picks where people are picking the Rams or there doesn't seem to be an overwhelming favorite, at least in some of the stuff that I've seen. But I don't know. I just think Joe Burrow's so cool, and I just want him to win because the Bengals, you know, they're finally not playing the 49ers in a Super Bowl. So, hey, maybe this is the year that they could finally win.
I no offense to all my friends in LA, but we've talked about this. Like, I just think Joe Burrow should win based on Joe Burrow has already won the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. Did you see what he's been wearing to the Super Bowl press events? Like, I'm sorry, it's over. Joe Burrow has already won.
Yeah. And again, Locked On Bengals, Locked On Rams, Locked On NFL, all there covering the Super Bowl. Very cool. Now let's get back to Rob Manfred. We have more comments to listen to. Okay. Let's do this.
I am an optimist, and I believe we will have an agreement in time to play our regular schedule. If I hadn't given consideration to what it would mean to miss games, I wouldn't be doing my job. Obviously, I pay attention to that. I see missing games as a disastrous outcome for this industry, and we're committed to making an agreement in an effort to avoid that.
Well, I mean, if that's the case, then maybe the league could have negotiated like with more of a sense of urgency. Because this lockout has been going on since December, and Rob Manfred himself said, like, you know, we're hoping that this lockout jump starts negotiations. Well, it takes 2 to tango.
Yeah, why is it all on the players? It feels like it's all on the players.
And the players have been have have been negotiating. Look, okay, you took off some time for Christmas. I get it. We all checked out a little bit around the holidays. Like,
Right.
December is just a month where nobody's brain is fully functioning. I get it. But there's been all this time. So it's difficult to think that, like, it's difficult to take that clip and take his words and take them at face value and say, yes, he's being sincere, because all this time has passed. And the players have said, well, we've presented more counter proposals than like negotiation attempts have even been made. Since, I mean, I think it was, who was it? Trevor Williams today. Because Rob Manfred said, phones work two ways. And Trevor Williams was like, oh, sorry, I've been playing video games using my dial-up internet. I'll get off now. I don't know if you'll understand that, Gen Z, but...
Oh, yeah. How many times I got in trouble for being on the internet? I got in trouble so many times that my dad ended up getting a second phone line for the house just for me to be on the internet in the late 90s.
My parents absolutely refused. And they would never get call waiting either, because they were like, it's so rude. We're not interrupting phone calls to take other phone calls. It's just too rude.
Oh, that's so fun. Call waiting was a revelation, because, oh my God, how many times I'd call my friends in elementary school and be so pissed if their phone was busy and then not be able to get in touch with them because their mom was on the phone.
My parents would be screaming to me upstairs, like, get off the phone. They keep people are trying to call the house and there's a busy signal. Mom, I want to discuss who has a crush on who with only 7th grade friends.
Yeah. Now, we were talking about this before the show, and then you just touched upon it after that clip. And Hannah Kaiser tweeted, it makes so much sense that Manfred would avoid declaring the obvious about spring training being delayed with a bargaining session scheduled for Saturday. He can project optimism now and hope people blame the players' reaction to Major League Baseball's forthcoming proposal for forcing a delay.
That's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Especially the fans who have sort of only casually followed, who aren't quite understanding the technicalities, and who aren't really reading the nitty-gritties of each side. Mm-hmm. And we talked about this last week. The players have really stepped up, and they've been using their platform, social media, to try and explain to fans their side of things. But there are still fans who say, I don't care, just give me a baseball season.
Yeah.
You both are being stubborn. You're both you're being paid millions to play a child's game. Suck it up. There are still going to be those people who say that.
Yeah.
And Rob Manfred is just setting the players up to take the blame when inevitably nothing gets done.
Right. Yep.
I
agree with that.
It's all business. It's all the bottom line with him. I mean, I deal with this in the NHL all the time too. Gary Bettman's absolute refusal to acknowledge that the Chicago Blackhawks have done anything wrong. That embarrassing wrist slap of a fine, $2 million fine. And then 2 weeks ago, the owner goes off the rails and screams at Mark Lazarus, a reporter, how, we're not going to talk about ways in which we have instituted, ways that we're going to prevent sexual assault, or we're going to, in the future, or ways that we're going to embolden our employees to speak up. And no, that's none of your business. It's none of your business. Gary Bettman then goes to the All-Star game and says, oh, poor Rocky Wirtz, he was having a hard day. It's all about the bottom line. Gary Bettman is protecting the brand. It's an iconic brand. It's an original six team. He has the back of the owner. He's a legacy owner. Rocky Wirtz's dad at one point was sort of the big power broker in the NHL before Gary Bettman was the commissioner. So dad or grandpa, I forget. I don't know how old anybody is. They're all really old though. This is what Rob Manfred is doing. He is publicly projecting an image of saying, I'm here for both sides. I want baseball back, and I don't think that I think that we're going to be able to get a deal done. No problem. And he is saying all the things that the owners want him to say and need him to say to protect their bottom lines.
Right.
Shifting the blame onto the players. It's a master manipulation tactic.
No, there was an interesting tweet from Bill Shaken. It said, Manfred...
Shake. I love Shake. He's a good guy.
Manfred asked if owning an MLB team is a good investment, said the return would be better on the stock market. He cites purchase price, sale price, and cash needed for operations, and said ownership is riskier than the stock market. Now, Keith Law quote tweeted and said, "That is a bald-faced lie, like an alternate facts kind of lie. A this pandemic will be over by 2020 lie. And I did not have sexual relations with that woman kind of lie. A read my lips, I will not raise taxes kind of lie. A falsehood, an untruth, an anti-fact."
Oh, I love Keith Law. I love how like brutally honest he always is. It is a lie. It is a lie. Rob Manfred is hoping that you, a casual baseball consumer, is stupid.
Pretty much.
He is hoping that you are stupid and that you are going to look at that and you're going to hear that and think, oh, wow, I didn't know that like owners really actually don't make money off of it. No, they make money off of a baseball team.
Yes.
They make money. Otherwise, you wouldn't have these massive bidding wars. These teams are worth billions of dollars.
Billions with a B, people. Billions.
These teams are worth billions of dollars.
Even the bad ones.
They bring in billions of dollars. And yes, sure, it's a status thing. But at the same time, these billionaires are billionaires for a reason. They are using tax loopholes to claim losses with their teams, which they absolutely can. There's nothing wrong. It's a loophole. These are legal loopholes. They're not losing money off of these teams the way that they want you to think they are, though.
Right. Poor
They're using
owners.
tax loopholes to claim losses to then get tax breaks.
Yeah.
And I'm no expert in that because like I can't even do my own taxes myself. It's really, I mean, I'm a freelancer though, so it's really hard anyway. But it's just remarkable how out of touch like the billionaires continue to be with like the rest of society. Yes. You know, it's the I don't know if you're an Arrested Development fan, but it's Lucille Bluth. It's one banana, Michael. How much could it cost? $10?
Exactly.
It's that.
It's so true.
It's that. That's what Rob Manfred is doing right now. And he's hoping that you are stupid and you are thinking that a banana costs $10 at Whole Foods.
Yeah.
Then you can go to Trader Joe's and get them for like 19 cents.
So, we're pessimistic about tomorrow?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very pessimistic about tomorrow.
Yeah, I am too.
I have no hopes for tomorrow, man.
I think it's almost safer to be that way because then if something good does happen, you'll be pleasantly surprised. But I don't think we'll be pleasantly surprised.
Well, that's sort of how I operate in life anyway.
Me too.
I wouldn't say that I'm actually a pessimist. I would not say I'm an optimist or a pessimist. I prefer to like live in reality.
You know, I'm a pessimist. I'll admit it.
And I prefer to examine all possible options on how things can go right and go wrong.
Right.
So
I'm negative and a pessimist. I'll say it right now. Everyone who knows me knows that about me.
Look, there are some things that have been proposed. It seems that Rob Manfred and the owners are maybe on the same page when it comes to like fundamental, more money for younger players, a more competitive game. I got to look into more of like the draft compensation, and I admittedly did not get a chance to sort of like look into all of the details this week because the Edmonton Oilers continue to be hot garbage on the ice.
Really, they're a tire fire. Yeah.
How are you such a tire fire with the two best players in the? Oh wait, just like the Angels. And that was actually in a column that I wrote a few weeks ago.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
I compared Mike Trout and Connor McDavid to one another, and Leon Draisaitl and Shohei Ohtani sort of equated them.
Yeah.
That might not even be fair to Leon Draisaitl, though. Shohei Ohtani it might not be fair to Shohei. Like, he's just like an otherworldly player. He's a player in a category all of his own, and Leon Draisaitl, though very good, is not,
Otherworldly is the perfect way to describe Shohei Ohtani. I mean, honestly, I saw him in person. It was that infamous game that the Yankees gave up a lot of runs, but they scored 7 against him, which was, I was going into the game expecting the Yankees to lose because he was pitching against them and hitting against them. And after that first inning ended, I was like, whoa, this is unbelievable. But he plays the game so well at every aspect of it. He's a good base runner. Yeah. He pitches well. He hits well. It's like, where did you come from?
And he's good defensively when they put him in the outfield too.
Yeah. It's like, holy hell, like what planet are you from? Because it doesn't seem like he's human.
So it's it's remarkable mismanagement when you cannot capitalize on having the two best players. And look, there's been dysfunction in both of those organizations. Like, they're very comparable situations.
Yeah.
Billy Epler inherited a farm system that was absolutely just blown to smithereens. Like,
it's true, yes.
Because Jerry Dipoto just makes trades for fun. Like,
I mean,
he thinks it's fancy
we
baseball or
joke
something.
about that on Twitter all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, did Jerry Dipoto make a trade? It'll be like, November 15th.
Yeah. And I was covering the Angels a little bit when Jerry Dipoto was there. And then it's funny, the night that he quit was the last night that I was covering the Angels for Fox Sports West. And there was like a whole group of us. We'd just gotten laid off. Our contracts expired at midnight. And we were all standing in the parking lot. And like, we're sort of hearing, like, we're getting texts from people in the organization. And we're like, you're getting texts from other reporters. And we're looking at what's going on. And we're like, oh, we can't write about any of this after midnight.
Oh, man.
And there's like a group of us standing in the parking lot. We actually start counting down. We're like, counting down from 10. Sure enough, like, we look at each other and we're like, all right, well, nobody called us. So like, we cannot write about this now. Like, our contracts just expired.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it was like 12:02. One of the desk editors was like calling us one by one. And we're just like, click, like, ignore. Sorry, we can't write.
Yeah, our contract's up.
Yeah, like, no, we're not. You're not getting us to work for free. So, it's Billy Epler did what he did, and it's tough to inherit a farm system like that. It's tough you've got to be able to draft and develop talent if you want to win. Peter Chiarelli with the Oilers drafted a little bit better, but then they hired a dinosaur in Ken Holland who isn't drafting well now, and also like is spending to the cap on players like Duncan Keith and like not fixing the goaltending situation. My column today that I wrote was like basically I think I tweeted it like, this is all Ken Holland's fault. Anyway, getting back to baseball.
Yeah.
I do need to like go back and look at like the nitty-gritty of the details of the draft compensation system.
Yeah.
What they're proposing. Or maybe I don't, because maybe that's not even going to matter. Maybe that's not even going to be in the next agreement. But I would not be doing my job as a reporter if I did not try to like comprehend the information and have a working knowledge of what's going on. So that's one of the things that I'm curious about, what comes out of tomorrow. And I am just not taking an optimistic approach, because the league has shown that they have more of an interest in just status quo and doing things the way that they've been doing, because it's profitable for the owners, and not playing ball, like, not, no pun intended, but not negotiating. Like, they do not seem to have an interest in negotiating right now. So what's to say that they're actually going to negotiate tomorrow, and they're not just going to show up and be like, yo, you guys like want Chick-fil-A or something? Like, I don't know why. I think I'm hungry.
Yeah, I'm actually hungry. I apologize for the rumbling you all just heard. That was my stomach. So next week we'll have a response.
Reveal.
Yeah, we'll have we'll respond to whatever happens this weekend. Again, as we both said, we're not very optimistic that anything good is going to come out of this weekend, but hopefully nothing bad comes out of it, if that makes sense. Like, I hope it's not where they're this far apart. You know what I mean? Like, that would be bad. Because, it should have been spring training next week, and that's not going to happen.
I know. It should have been spring training next week.
Yeah, all the stuff we had, stuff to look forward to, and now this would be the week where we're like, oh my God, it's how many days till spring training, do the countdown, and it's
and you get really excited for the first few days, and then it's kind of boring, because you're like, right. Well, right. How many times do you ask a guy, like, how many curveballs did you throw in your bullpen today? And right. I really don't need to see pitchers taking batting practice that often.
Right.
But, spring training, like, it's just sort of this like renewed energy and optimism, and it signals the beginning. Yeah. And we don't know where the beginning is going to be this year. Mm-hmm. And that is not good for the brand. It's also not good for those of us who have to deal with real weather. Like, maybe I wouldn't be as upset about this if I was still living in LA, but it's the end of the winter is what it also signals, which is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so next week, We'll have the reaction to whatever happens tomorrow. But for now, that's it for this episode of Locked On Yankees, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Abby and I would like to remind you that you can listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, Spotify, Stitcher. You can watch and subscribe to us on YouTube. Our next big number is 750. And when you get into your car, you can tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Bets. Now make your second listen of the day Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets is hosted by your boy Q with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. One more thing, if you could be so kind, please rate the podcast and spread the word about this podcast to your fellow Yankee fans. We would really appreciate it. So enjoy your weekend, and we will talk to you all next week.